Hi, this is Jessica with NNC Construction today. I'm talking with Val and Ray, and we just finished a renovation for this beautiful kitchen. You'll get to see the separate video of that a little bit later. In the meantime, I'm just going to ask them some questions about how things went during our renovation with their kitchen. So, first question is, basically, why did you guys pick NNC? I'm sure you called other contractors, most people do, but why did you pick us?
Because he showed up.
That's a good reason. Okay.
He actually showed up early.
Okay.
And he was honest. Like, I didn't feel the other companies I talked to were honest.
Okay.
It was more like they were throwing out a figure without even seeing the kitchen.
Okay.
And, like, it was astronomical prices.
Okay.
And then Nelson comes in here and he says, this isn't a $50,000 kitchen.
Okay.
And so he just gives me a ballpark figure. I'm like, okay, I like it. And then he proceeded to tell me I didn't want the things I wanted. So
But apparently that worked out.
that worked out very well.
Well, I think the first thing that Val said was prior history with contractors has been a nightmare for getting them to call, getting them to show up when they say they're going to show up, even letting you know they're going to be late.
Right.
Well, none of that happened because not only did he show up, he showed up early. He came in, and Val and I had a lot of conversations before he came in the door.
Right.
And I pretty much lost most of the discussions as to things to be done in the kitchen because I had some different ideas, but it's her kitchen, so
Right.
that was fine. But when Nelson came in, he started throwing ideas out, and nobody had thrown ideas out.
Okay.
And he went as far as incorporating what used to be a dining room area into the kitchen,
Right.
which we had never even considered.
Okay.
So he starts throwing these ideas out, and lo and behold, they all made sense. They even, to the point where Val started to change
Right.
her thought process. And the end result was Nelson was right.
Yeah.
Okay. There were a few things that Val stuck her guns to.
Right.
That Nelson didn't necessarily agree.
Right.
But it all worked out.
Yeah.
But the big decisions, and I'll just use one in particular. Val wanted white cabinets. Nelson was very clear right from the get-go. I will put white cabinets in for you if that's what you want.
Right.
But I can guarantee you a month or 2 months down the road, you will hate them.
Right.
And when everything came to conclusion, Val looked around and said, yeah, the cabinets that we got were the correct cabinets.
Yeah.
So that is, he's truthful, straightforward, on time, let alone early, and communication. And not only from Nelson's perspective, but if we had to make a phone call or send an email, it went to you.
Yes.
And you were very quick to respond.
I try to be. I know as a customer of other businesses, it's frustrating when you don't hear back from somebody. So for us, as a family-run business, that's one of our goals. We want to make sure that communication is always quick. Even if it's not the news that you want to hear.
Right.
We had some of that.
And sometimes that happens.
We had some of that during this, but it was
Yeah.
communicated, the expectations were reset, and we
Right.
moved forward.
Right.
So.
And we do the best we can. Actually, that leads into my next question. Due to COVID and all of the shutdowns, there were a lot of delays, a lot of material delays, a lot of employee delays. Like, things just didn't always work the way we wanted them to. So with that happening with you guys, after we started the project or before we started the project, was there a time where you were ever concerned about that? Because you'd already had a signed contract with us, you'd already given us money. Was there any concern about those delays?
Other than the fact that we didn't have a kitchen sink, that was the
That was
thing
making me
we
crazy.
hated the
Right.
most.
Okay.
I never realized the sink meant so much.
Yeah.
But having to go downstairs to the laundry room to wash the dishes, and I like to clean up as I go along.
I'm the same
and
way.
that wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
I got a lot of steps in
Yeah.
during the construction,
Yeah.
but that was the only thing. But it wasn't a concern on your guys' part.
Right.
It was just that we just were anxious. We wanted to get it done. Just the
Understandable.
sink. I don't care if anything else got put in. Just get the sink and the plumbing in.
Give me my plumbing.
I'll take a different tack
Sure.
to answer that question.
Yeah.
We contacted you guys a number of months prior to the start of the project.
Yes.
And one of the things that was laid out very clearly by Nelson was, I will not start this until I have everything.
And we're that way
And
with every job.
I completely got that when he said it,
Yes.
but I more completely got it when he started the work.
Yes.
And you were very clear all the way up that we've ordered the cabinets. They're just not here yet.
Yeah.
Thank you, supply chain, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
You know, but then one day we got the phone call that said, the
They're
cabinets are coming.
Yeah.
Can you store them somewhere?
Yeah.
And it was a very short period of time after that you guys started the work.
Right.
So to your question of, were we concerned from the time we signed the contract to the time you actually started the work that something was going to go, there's going to be a major
South.
hiccup and you were going to
Yeah.
go walk?
Right.
No, I never had that concern.
I'm glad. That makes me very happy. Okay, final question. How did you feel about the whole process? From the day you met Nelson for the estimate all the way up until everything's being done, is there anything that stands out specifically about NNC as a contractor?
Your employees are amazing.
It made me cry.
They showed up early. They communicated with us. We joked around. We had a lot of laughs. But they worked their butts off from the minute they showed up until they were done for the day. They cleaned up after themselves. They respected the fact that this was our home. So they had, all this plastic down on the stairs, down the hallway, drop cloths everywhere, because it's our home.
Yeah.
And they totally get that. And they're young.
Yeah.
At least the ones that were here were young guys.
Right.
And I was totally blown away by all that.
Yeah.
The only word she didn't use that I would add to that is they were courteous. Completely and totally courteous.
Okay.
No matter what it was, if you had a question, they stop and answer, I'm sorry. So the employees were great from that perspective. I think Val said a lot of it. But again, I'll go back to it, and it's a repeat, but you guys communicated. So as an example, we had pushed this thing, I should say Nelson and crew had pushed this thing, we got it all the way down to, we were waiting for the tops.
Right.
And there was a blip with the company.
Right.
And it probably frustrated him more than it frustrated us.
Probably.
But he came right in and said, I got some news. It's not good news. It's not a disaster, but we have to deal with this. And he
Right.
explained what was going on. We have to move the dates out for the stuff to come in, which increased Val's concern about not having a sink, because you couldn't have a sink until you had
without a
countertops.
countertop, yep.
And so, that was fantastic. And then we had some hiccups with the appliances, which had nothing to do with you guys,
Right.
but Nelson made it right.
Yeah.
Okay, he just talked
Goes
us
out
through
of his
it.
way, yeah.
And there's been a couple follow-up items, very minor,
Right.
extremely minor. But it's like if I blip and say, just
What's going on with this?
no, I don't even say what's going on. If I just point it out, I can almost guarantee you, unless I'm very staunch about, no, don't show up tomorrow morning because it's not
He'll be
necessary,
here.
he'll be here.
Yeah.
So it was taking the supply chain out of the whole thing from the day Nelson and team walked in here till the day he looked around and said, we're done. It was a really good experience turning the house upside down for a long-term gain.
And as an aside to that, a kitchen as a project is usually the hardest for the families to deal with because you do so much in your kitchen. And I know we do little things. We try to hook the stove up so that you can still use it. We try to keep the refrigerator hooked up so you can still use it.
Yep.
A lot of companies won't do that. And imagine if we
No.
hadn't had everything, how much longer that
Oh, yeah.
process would have
Right.
taken.
If you had not, if Nelson didn't set that expectation up front and just started
Tearing
doing
your house
whatever,
apart.
it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
But there was a very clear start and a
Yes.
very clear end,
Yes,
and it made it much easier
to deal with
to
the
deal with
mess.
from our perspective.
Yes. Santa, that's why our slogan is we want to treat your house like it's ours. I mean, let us make your house a home. That's our slogan, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
That's why everything from the way Nelson treats you down to the way the guys treat you, that's something that we put an effort in to make sure that they do that with our
And
customers.
the other thing they did more on Nelson was that, like, when he would come something would come up, he'd call me from downstairs, say, come here, you need to, I need to ask you about this.
Right.
Do you want this or don't you want this? Like the trim on the bottom of the island.
Right.
He's like, do you want it or don't you? And he'd show me what it would look like both ways.
Right.
That meant a lot.
It's a little
to
thing
me.
that makes
Yeah.
a difference.
It's like, do you want the pendant lights centered over the island or over the cabinets?
Right.
Just things I would never have thought about.
Right.
But he brought me into it
Yes.
to make that decision. So.
And it's important because this is, when we're done, this is what you're living with. So he wants to make sure, we both want to make sure that this is what you guys are going to be happy with for years and years and
Well,
years.
considering I want him to come back.
May I interject? Two things he did that wouldn't have ever crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about the countertops,
Mm-hmm.
and he looks at these walls.
Yes.
Okay, and he goes, this kitchen's now so big, people are going to spend a lot of time here. You're going to have people kind of walk in here to talk. They're going to lean against here. Wouldn't it be a good idea maybe to put countertop on top of these walls? Then people can put their cups on there or whatever. And I was like, wow, that's a great idea. So it was things like that. And then even a thing like the floor.
Right.
Because
Oh, yeah.
it's a long kitchen.
Which way you lay
And
the floor
so
makes a
which way do you
difference.
want the floor?
Yeah.
So he brought Val upstairs.
Yeah.
And he actually talked to me first
Yeah.
because I was up here. Then he brought Val upstairs and he explained to her, if you do it one way, lengthwise, it's going to look like a bowling alley.
Yes.
And there's going to be some situations that you're not going to like.
Right.
But if you do it this way, it's going to be blah, blah, blah. And he explained it.
Right.
Well, she originally thought lengthwise.
Right.
But when he explained it, she goes, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's those things and the communication that make this process, as crazy as the process is,
As
it makes
good
it
as possible.
possible,
Yes. Fantastic. Well, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for talking
Thank
with
you.
us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank your husband.
We will.
And thank your team.
Thank
And
you.
thank your son for who's doing the photograph
I
because
will
he's doing
do
a
that.
heck of a job.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.